Good morning, from the PharSide Pholios broadcast and to the PharSide Co-Ed Book Club. Welcome to another edition of PharSide Pholios. We are kicking off our month-long celebration. It's National Reading Month. National Reading Month, of course. On the 2nd, we had Dr. Seuss's birthday, Read Across America Day, and then actually today is National Grammar Day. Who would have thunk it, right? So we are here with our special series of author interviews, along with the daily posts and weekly posts that you see via the website or on our social media pages. So today we have with us author N.M. Rudolph. He is a passionate poet and an innovative author of Meadowvale, which is the one that we're discussing today. Rumination, Untold Tales, and 6. As a masterful writer, he uses his imagination to draw readers into enriching new worlds or renewed vision of familiar stories. He was born in Maryland and grew up in Germany. He lives in Pennsylvania with his wife and teaches a great range of subjects at Gamut Academy. When he isn't busy writing, he can be found dressing up like a pirate at the Renaissance Fair. Awesome! Seeking theatrical trouble elsewhere or dabbling in a somewhat new hobby. So welcome to the PharSide, N.M. Rudolph.
Thank you, Monica. What a wonderful introduction.
Oh, you're welcome. We pride ourselves on trying to do the best intros for our author. And so we are here today to talk about Meadowvale.
Meadowvale. So do you know the movie Knight's Tale?
Yes.
Do you remember when Chaucer introduces von Liechtenstein and he does this beautiful thing? It's like kind of like that. That was what just happened there.
Oh, thank you. I would have never made that connection. Yeah. Oh yeah, but I do remember that. Yeah. With a flair and a finish, of course.
Lovely. Thank you.
Flair and a finish, of course. So we're excited to have you here on the PharSide, and we're talking about Meadowvale. And of course, this is not the only work that you have out there in the writing space, but this is the one that we're talking about today. So we're so glad to have you discuss and peer into this particular work. And so as a reader, and you look at the back page, you look at the cover layout, the inside, you look at the inside, the read about the story, and then you read about the author on the back flap. So you've got all of these things that you're looking to help you make that decision. Okay, you read the first line, you might jump somewhere into the end, or you may jump into the middle. However, something that's interesting about this particular book is that you've got this prologue, right? And you begin it with the observation of this stranger, coming into town, looking for someone in particular. But in the process, he's hearing and seeing all of these different things. He's hearing the laughter of children, the sounds of like a scuffle, kind of squirmish, like argument type situation. Then it's, just the sincere greeting of someone welcoming him to town. But, unbeknownst to those villagers and persons in the town, he is really a soothsayer. And so what brings him to this place, this kind of haven for long-eared folks, and has his coming, this soothsayer, come to, signal dangers of something that's to come, or he's just simply somebody just passing through?
Yeah. So for those who are watching, listening, long-eared folks, this book, if you've seen the picture, it's rabbits, anthropomorphized, loved it. But this particular character, there's a prologue, and in it there's this guy walking through Meadowvale, which is the name of the book, and it's also the first town, the first village you experience as you're going through. I don't know, how much am I supposed to give away?
Just kind of, you can give kind of
What is
the,
the thing?
like an overview, or like a drawing
There's
card. What's the hook?
I'll try not to spoil. So this is the first book. I've envisioned a series sort of loosely outlined, and there's a character, a person in Meadowvale, and you'll get to know her as the book unfolds, but she's a key player as the entire series unfolds. And so this isn't much of a spoiler. There's magic in the book. In this particular, the soothsayer has his own connection to magic, and then senses her, and he knows that she is going to cause a whole lot of chaos, both good and bad. I mean, chaos, I guess, can be good, yeah. But a lot is gonna be happening around her, and so he's basically just, excuse me. He's basically checking in. He's not there to warn them of danger, because, as the prologue says, is like anytime you try to prevent a future, like a foreseen catastrophe, it usually backfires and gets worse. Yeah, that's who he is.
Okay, so this story kind of is built around a family. At least, the beginning story, you see this, family of long-eared folks, rabbits.
Yeah.
That you got a mother father figure that have like a loving relationship. They you start to see some references to some kind of traumatic event that might have occurred in the family early on, and you got you got the daughter, concerned about sewing and chores, and an older brother, a middle brother, and a younger brother. How did the family dynamics shape and inform the story, from thinking of sibling rivalry, assigned roles, expectations, and the like?
Yeah. So the youngest brother, um, sadly, you don't get to see him much, despite how cute I think he is. But there is tension between the middle and older brother, where the older brother is kind of annoyed because he was the only, he was the only child for a little while, or he was the only boy. The daughter is the oldest. But he kind of felt like he had his place, and then of course his younger brother comes along and ruins that. So there's frustration coming downward, and then the middle brother, Wearable is his name. Excuse me, Brind is the older brother. Wearable is the middle brother. Wearable is annoyed because he's always trying to prove himself, and his older brother's always complaining about him or giving him attitude. So Wearable is trying to show that he's good enough, that he's strong enough, or that he's smart enough. So that dynamic trickles through the story because the village is attacked. A lot of people are captured, including Wearable, and he's turned into a sort of soldier slave. And that there, right away, there are a couple other details. He starts training with a sword. It's sort of like an old habit. Meadowvale villagers don't do it as much because they feel like, there's enough peace. We don't need to worry about swords. His dad's kind of old-fashioned in that sense, where he likes, it's just an old skill that he didn't want to let die. So he's like, hey, Wearable, I'll teach you this if you want. Your older brother, he wasn't interested, and that's fine, but I'll teach you. I say that because so Wearable he starts working on the farm, so he's getting strong. He starts training with a sword, so he's learning how to be combative. And then he's got this kind of subtle tension with his older brother. So there's a sense of he needs to prove himself. at the beginning, everything's kind of mellow, where it's just like, all right,
Mhm.
we're peaceful, run a farm. You fight with your brother, but we all love each other. Everything's fine. Boom, bad army sweeps in, captures, takes them over to the evil lair thing. So now, Wearable stands out already because he's got an attitude. Sometimes bad.
Mhm.
It's usually just bold. He's got a bold attitude, and he's strong, and he's well trained for his age, anyway.
Mhm.
So immediately, the guy, the character whom I call the slaver, he's like, "Hey, you stand out. I'm gonna come. Like, I want to turn you into my little pet soldier, basically." Does that answer? So, like, all of those
Yeah.
variables flow into how Wearable basically grows through the story.
So I mean, because with being, kind of that middle kid, you know, um, you don't you're too old to be the baby, but too young to have some of the big responsibilities, and so Warble is in that kind of awkward space. So there's that snowball, of incidents, like like you're building up to, the capture of every, and the attack on his home, his community, and his dad has prepared him for, in a way, for what he's going to be able to do for his age, by for kind of first getting him to the, okay, we're farmers, you know but this is a kid who's excited. He wants to fight. He's seen his dad's sword in the house, so he talks about playfully about being able to slay dragons and fight and all of those kinds of things, and what he's taken down. um and then you've got these incidents from, like, what begins with his sister's disappearance, and then mom's taking a leap from a window, that from a burning house, and you know Warble's, response to these things, coming into light, awareness of what's going on around him. Um, how do those kinds of, things kind of shape his response?
Yeah. So there are the most of those events are separate. Excuse
Mhm.
me. Most of those events are separate, meaning um, Wearable and his younger brother are captured together. His
Mhm.
sister woke up early, so he wasn't there to see her disappearance. And
Mhm.
then most of the family members are gone when the house is set on fire, when Mary wakes up to discover her family's been captured. She doesn't know it at that point, but she knows, oh, they're missing. My house is on fire. The door is barricaded or locked. I need to escape. So Wearable himself doesn't see those particular
Mhm.
things, but the overall experience of being captured, and there are two soldiers, these two menacing soldiers that drag him and his brother away. So that experience kind of reinforces his good defiant attitude. It gets him into trouble sometimes, of course, with the bad guys, but it helps him push through this long-winded hardship. Yeah.
And you've got the element of memory, so which plays a role in telling the story, as the mom reminding Warble of his older brother, and the family as a whole of having experienced some hard times in the past. Maybe not going into a lot of details, but telling, okay, you need to be considerate of your older brother because he's experienced some things.
Mhm.
Um, or the conversation that occurred between the father, Jalek, and the blacksmith, you know, or the exchange glances that, the mother and father make as parents, where you know, you see like the hint of tears or sadness. Um, So what is the importance of memory, and how does that play out? Um,
Yeah. So it's not. I don't know if this is a spoiler. It's not told. Excuse me again. It's not told directly in the story, but
mhm,
some years ago. So like, look, when you start in the story, roll back some years, there was a smaller raid through the villages, and they had another daughter younger than Allison, younger than the one who you see in the story, who
mhm,
was killed. And so that was long enough ago that most of the towns have sort of like forgotten it, gotten over it, moved on. They still remember, but it's not like, oh, I'm scared for, we're scared for our lives, we need to have soldiers everywhere. But because it impacted the family, this particular family called the High Phallus, it impacted them directly. It stands out in their brains. So memory. Another big factor of that is basically forgetfulness. I don't even know if this is like a theme I wanted to push that hard,
mhm,
but it shows up at least here. Forgetfulness is dangerous because as you follow the story, Meadowvale, a lot of villagers from Meadowvale are going around saying, "Hey, we need help. We need to go get the evil lizard king, kill him, get him, like save our families." And a lot of people push back by saying, "Oh, like you've had some hardships. It happens to all of us. Like moving on, like get over it, basically." And they're saying, "No, this is not just an unfortunate event. It's not just a small band of raiders. We like this is the main guy who's building some evil empire. We need to stop this. We can't let this keep happening." So there is this tension between like we remember the hardships, and it's not just, oh, it was hardship. We remember there's this great evil hiding away. And then the other side of that tension is, well, you're just kind of dramatizing it, you're exaggerating it. Get on with your life, stop trying to cause problems in our lives. And that's a big factor for the villagers that aren't captured as they're trying to figure out how to save their families.
Now, Meadowvale is not your first publication.
Correct.
And as you indicated or hinted, this is a part of a series. What about Meadowvale is different from any of your other works?
Yes. So a couple of my other works are collections of poetry or flash fiction.
Mhm.
So that's excuse me, I'm very dry throat today. Um, my other books are small collections. So I'd say that's hard to compare. They're like very distinct. Although, what makes Meadowvale stand out? I think what makes it stand out in its own right is that a lot of it is about relationships and family and loyalty. There are, of course, the fantasy elements. There's magic and there's some swords and they're like the bad guys and empires and things like that. But most of it builds off of, at least, the sense of family and trust and loyalty. And so there it starts off with the family. Like the High Phallus is their last name. But as they start going around to the villages, going around to the other rabbit places, they're sort of they're trying to like foster the sense of large scale loyalty,
Mhm.
because they all know that they're all rabbits and they're all like, okay, we're all good guys, if you can say that. But most of them are sort of suspicious of each other, not like, hey, you're gonna you know raid our villages, but just like, well, we don't really know who you are, so don't come to us, is one of the default reactions. But yeah, I mean, the story follows these different villages as they're all saying, hey, you know what? There is something evil out there, and we can trust each other, even if we're different. We have to. I mean, in this context, we have to band together. And I think that's a great element that comes out in Meadowvale, the book.
Okay, and with any great story, setting plays a key role in telling the story and supporting the characters. So what is the unique about this particular setting?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was kind of the way I created the setting was I almost want to say lazy. Um, I went sideways in the sense that I didn't go in human timeline. It's got a sort of a medieval-ish vibe. Doesn't have electricity. Doesn't have technology like that. They're farmers, blacksmiths, carpenters, a lot of craftsmen,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course I threw in magic, so that I guess that's part of the setting that lets the world expand far beyond these wholesome but mundane things like crafts people. And then beyond that, the setting it shows off, I think, the different cultures. So there are the different rabbit cultures who live in their own places. Like the Meadowvale itself is a lot of farmland. To the far west, there's the village of Firth, and they're hidden off in forests, like deep, dense woods. To the far east are the lizards, and they're in mountains, like underground mountain tunnels. So the setting, I think, allows for these different, I mean, if nothing else, different flavors, but especially with the rabbits, it gives off this like we are distinct. We have, not only do we have different livelihoods and personalities, but we also just have different like living spaces. And that adds to the tension between the different villages, saying like, how do we work together? We're so different. It also adds to, eventually, I think it adds to the variety, because when they do work together, there's this beautiful range of skills, of strengths and weaknesses that they employ together. And I think the setting like shows that off even a little bit more.
So what has drawn you into this genre of fantasy?
Well, I mean, the reason I laugh is because the first sort of response is laziness again. I don't quite mean that. The reason I say laziness is because if it were something less fantastic, something less fictiony, I'd have to care more about history or more about like official facts and law, like physics laws or whatever. With fantasy, I'm like, I just make it up whatever I want and it'll work. There's still the responsibility of, okay, if I make up a rule, like whether it's physics or whatever, then I have to follow through and like commit to that, make sense out of it. But I can make up my own rules. Beyond that, I love the bigness, the possibilities, because when you step into fantasy, you can do anything. And I don't know if it's because I've just been trying for it for so long, or if there's something that happened, like, what came first, the need to create or just the habit of creating. I think there's probably a need deep down in me. And I'm always having these ideas of like, what if this big grand thing happened? Or what if there were creatures like this? Or what if people spoke this way? Or what if gravity was inverted? Or all these random things. Most of them don't make it into stories, but there's like this nagging need to like, what if the world were bigger? Or what if the world were deeper? That's what I
So,
think. Sorry.
so you feel that you found your niche in fantasy, in this genre of fantasy, or are there other genres that you want to eventually tap into?
Yeah, science fiction. Here's my core circle of fantasy, and then here's science fiction, and then there's some, like, for some of the stories that I've imagined, like I just I don't know if I can do this plug. I just published Michael the Traveler. Technically, so in my heart, it is science fiction. But as you go through the story, it just looks like fantasy. There's no point where somebody sits down and says, "Ah, yes, here are the physics rules behind how Michael is traveling." So, fantasy, science fiction. The reason I like science fiction is because it's kind of the same thing. You just have to be a little more, I guess, verbose with like, here's why this thing is here. With fantasy, you can just say magic blasts out of nowhere because I can. And science fiction is like, well, we have this spaceship that does this impossible thing because of some long-winded explanation to distract you from the fact that it wouldn't work. Kind of thing.
All right. So with that, kind of describe your writing journey, from going from the ideas of, something I've been thinking about, I wonder if, from the if questions and statements to now, okay, published author of, several, you got Meadowvale, you got Rumination, you got Unhinged, you got Untold Tales, and then you gave, talk about the Michael, this new book, The Traveler. So tell us about your journey, your writing journey.
Oh, jeepers. How much of it? From childhood or like the past few years?
You can condense it.
You
can give it to us in brief.
Yeah, all right. So childhood, my dad is a scholar, and I was like, cool, I like that. I'm gonna do that too. His focus is nonfiction. He's not an author, but he does read and write a lot and does lots of academic things. But then I was like, I'm gonna go the fantasy direction. So then fast forward a decade plus, whatever. As I was describing, there is this nagging thing in the back of my brain nonstop of like, what if the world were bigger? What if the world were deeper? And that nagging turns into, I gotta write. I just gotta. And so I've found this precarious balance between like paying the bills and trying to write. I mean, the dream is to pay the bills via writing, but whatever, baby steps. And so now, as I lean into that, as I say, if I don't write, I'm gonna lose my mind. Now, like I'll try to stay alive and feed myself and house myself and stuff. But if I don't write, I'm gonna lose my mind. So that seems kind of important. With that, then these dreams, these figurative dreams of these stories, they're just waiting to burst out. And so I think it's like, what is it like? The image I just had is if you're digging in some mine, you're thinking, I'm going to find gems, and you're digging, and you just keep finding rocks. Oh, look, a block of coal. It's not a rock, but it's a block of coal. And then you accidentally tap into like, I found one diamond. This is cool. And you start digging in that direction, and then suddenly like it becomes more and more volume of precious gems. That's what it's been like, where I was like hacking away at rocks, just writing, not really knowing why, where. And then I found the direction toward which I should aim. And I started finding like, oh yeah, I've got these ideas, or I've got these stories, or I've got these. Now, I mean, marketing efforts and tools, that's a lot of the energy, but that's what the writing journey has been like, where for a while I was just hacking at dull rocks. And now I'm finding gems, and I'm like, cool, I got to figure out how to make this efficient, marketable, but it's exciting to find those figurative gems.
Well, we're glad that you found those gems and are finding those gems, and that, readers worldwide are going to have that opportunity to find the gems of your work, especially this particular book, Meadowvale.
So.
Meadowvale, love the story. And some of the things I've read, they've compared you to C.S. Lewis, if anybody's read the Chronicles of Narnia, and that whole genre, that whole series. So you've got some look, good comparison there. So what are some things that you hope that people will pick up? What are maybe two things you hope people, readers, will think about or take away from Meadowvale?
Man, I packed in a lot of themes. I think, yeah, there's so many. One of my favorites is indeed, hey, we're drastically different, but we can still work together. And so that is most obvious. Excuse me. That is most obvious with the rabbit villages, with like, oh, we're all different. I think you're weird. You think I'm weird, but we still have to save our families together. But there are a few lizard characters. Lizards are the sort of the bad guys, but there are a few. There's one specifically whose nickname is the Librarian, and he's doubting what the path he's chosen in life. He has a lot of regrets, and so there's this point, this turning point in his life with experiencing these rabbits, where he's like, I don't think I want to be a bad guy anymore. And then there's this new tension of like, we are drastically different. You are technically a bad guy, but somehow we can work together for the greater good. So I think the theme from that is like, good can be wrought even when things seem like they're clashing. That's one. I don't know. I could say so many more, but I like that.
All right. All right. Remember, for those who are watching us live and those who will catch us again on replay, that you can pick up this book. This is National Reading Month, so we want you to go out to all of your major retailers and pick up Meadowvale. It's a beautiful and wonderful read. So Nathan, can you tell our viewers how they can purchase the book and how they can connect with you on social media?
Yeah. So my website is nmrudolph.com. That'll lead you to all my books. Instagram is at n.m.rudolph. If you're looking for Facebook, you can go facebook.com/nmrudolphbooks. If you want to go straight to Amazon, you can just look up the various titles. You could look up N.M. Rudolph. Most of my books will probably pop up on the first page. And then once you find one of them, whether it's Meadowvale, Unhinged 36 by 36, Untold Tales, you'll find me. And then there'll be the little author link there. You can follow that, and that'll lead you to my full menu of books. Yeah, lots of methods. Those are probably some of the best. But if you look up N.M. Rudolph, you will find me somewhere, probably on the first page.
Well, on behalf of the PharSide, I'd like to thank my guest, N.M. Rudolph, for spending this beautiful morning with us. And we wish you continued success with not only Meadowvale, but all the projects that you currently have released and those projects that are yet to come. So reminder to our audience to stay in tune to the PharSide Co-Ed Book Club Facebook page for more author interviews and posts as we celebrate National Reading Month during the month of March. Today is National Grammar Day. Next week celebrates the ebooks. So ebooks and returning your books to the library, borrowing books. So turn your books back. If you have not turned your books back in,
go do it.
Next week is the grace period. They're celebrating returning your books, your borrowed books next week. So turn those books back into your librarian. He or she will be happy that you did. So we are here to celebrate all things reading, all things authors and their wonderful works. So thank you for tuning in to the PharSide Pholios. So until next time.
Monica, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much, Nate, for joining us. And keep us posted on any of the works you have rolling out so that we make sure that we're able to blast them out to our audience and all of our social media platforms and stuff like that. So for our PharSide viewers, until next time, many roots, many voices are part of the infinite story. So plant your seed and have a great and wonderful day.